You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and happy Wednesday. Welcome to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the business talk show live here on Business Talk Radio and social media. I am your host and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. I am a certified life and career coach. I love this program, and a big reason is because of this gentleman, Mr. Al Cini. He is amazing, right?
I'll take amazing.
So Al is our co-host. He's my partner and friend, and he has so much knowledge and expertise in many fields. Considering that you were here today, I'm just so grateful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful to be invited here. And our guest today is, as they say, right in my wheelhouse. People ask if I do public speaking. And I say I'm not a motivational speaker, but I am a speaker on the subject of human motivation. And that really is the topic today. The topic today is, how do you motivate people to do the things that need to be done to achieve the success that you yearn for without you having to do all that work yourself? And, we live in a world of thirds. Only a third of people are engaged in their work. Only a third of projects ever succeed. 2/3 or more of companies fail right after startup because they never quite meet their goals or never quite establish themselves in the marketplace. You can improve those odds greatly by engaging your people, and that is what Bruce Bolger is going to talk about.
You know, I've known of Bruce for years, many years. He's really an expert in his field. He's got a great reputation, so thank you for bringing him to us today.
He's one of the founders of the Enterprise Engagement Alliance, a terrific website with a lot of great information there. He's prolific on LinkedIn. You should definitely connect with him and get to know better how he does what he does and what it is that he does. And there isn't any business owner in the country, or in the world for that matter, that can afford to ignore what we've been through over the past year and the effect it has had on their people and on their company. Everybody needs really to take action right away. And Bruce has got a lot of great advice on how to do that.
And I think it's interesting, Al, that Bruce, yourself, and myself, we all have the common thread of helping drive behavior change with people.
That's really it. I mean, you do it as a coach, and I do it as a kind of an organizational development guy with the Brand and Culture Alignment Toolkit. And Bruce has a very, very big tent with lots of really smart people in it, each of whom has their own angle and their own approach to it. And that's why it's so good to get to know him. And the two of you have common roots, too, in the incentives and rewards programs business. Isn't that right?
Yes. I worked in the incentive space, employee recognition, sales incentives, meetings, and events for, I think, just about 18 years.
Well, one of the topics we'll squeeze in, it's Bruce's idea, and he knows all about this, is you can spend a lot of money on perks and tchotchkes and bling, but are you really getting a return on that money? And a lot of people are asking the hard questions these days. What do I need to do to really propel my people? Bruce has got some interesting angles on that.
Yeah, we're going to bring him out. So what I found through the course of my career when I was in that role was that there are people who do have programs in place, and they've been in place for years and years and years and years, and they've never measured how effective they are. So they're basically taking that money and just not using it potentially in the best way that they could. So Let's bring Bruce out.
Good.
Here he is, Bruce Bolger. Welcome, Bruce.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure.
It's wonderful to have you here. So how do you two know each other?
Well, Al plays a very important role in the overall field of enterprise engagement because it's all about aligning people. When we get into your show, and we have plenty of time to cover, engaging people, the number one thing is to have alignment, to have a clear purpose and to have everybody aligned. So Al, when I saw the work that BCAT was doing, I reached out to him, and we've covered him multiple times in our media platforms, because I don't know of any other company that really has developed such an integrated approach. So that's how we know. That's how I know Al.
Yeah, it's great meeting him. We've known each other for a couple of years, and it's been a mutual education experience, because I've learned a lot from Bruce too, and he's got a lot of connections in this field too.
And have you found, because I know I have during the pandemic, it's such an incredible time to make new connections and support each other. So I love the fact that this was already happening before this, but I found that even during this time, you were able to collaborate with people whom you may never have met before, and then do work that you didn't even dream of doing together.
You know, a lot of people say this all the time, but much good is going to come out of the pandemic. On a spiritual level, for families and individuals, look at all the people moving and changing their lives. That's not, Jacalyn, I think that's part of your other work. But from an organizational standpoint, what happened was the CEOs and CFOs all of a sudden woke up to a world without people. Well, wait a minute. What are I have my 20% of my balance sheet is tangible assets. 80% of it is intangible assets. Well, all of a sudden, without people, my business was meaningless. And all of a sudden, my tangible assets are meaningless. So I think the pandemic is speeding up something that was already beginning to occur well before it. And that is that a recognition that people are the last bastion of value creation. And that we as capitalists have done a very poor job of really profiting from people. We've extracted wealth from people. We've not been good about growing the pie through people.
You know, I'm so glad you put it exactly that way, Bruce, because it is a lot of the traditional disciplines for business are Six Sigma type disciplines, where we're looking to figure out how many slices we can get out of a pie. But the real goal ultimately is to grow the pie so that there's more in it for everybody. And you can't do that. Even before COVID, people were beginning to wake up to this. And that's why I'm so glad you brought that up too. Explain to everybody out there what stakeholder capitalism is.
Well, stakeholder capitalism, the buzzword, I think, was developed in the early 60s or 70s by Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum. And of course, many people have heard of that organization as the sponsors of Davos each year. I think you can safely say it's the in crowd of business management. And but the term really didn't take off until 2 years ago, when the Business Roundtable, which is, again, a highly prestigious organization of the world's largest multinationals, changed the charter of a business to focus on all stakeholders rather than just on shareholders. And so they created they started using the term stakeholder capitalism. And we define stakeholder capitalism, and there is no official definition. And the definition is actually very important. So our organization, published in Google, thankfully, shows up right up when you search for stakeholder capitalism. It's creating wealth for shareholders by creating value for customers, employees, suppliers, communities, and the environment. So it's not about taking money from stakeholders to give to other from shareholders, I should say, to give to other stakeholders. Stakeholder capitalism is about growing the pie to create a virtuous circle of sustainable profitability and prosperity that adds value to people's lives rather than extracting value from them.
There is so much power in that. And key to what you're talking about, Bruce, is that it's got to be a systematic approach. This is not a kumbaya opportunity, really. And it's not, even though what we're doing is talking about motivating human beings, there can be, organizations can adopt a systematic approach to accomplishing that.
Correct. In fact, the reason employee engagement scores haven't gone up in the last 10 years that Gallup has tracked them, despite millions of billions spent in assessment, coaching, leadership training. You know, companies hire Tony Robbins to come in or other famous people, but nothing changes. People just go back to their desks and it's the same old job. So what we've learned from ISO quality management standards that transformed quality management in the last century is that what's required is a CEO-led strategic and systematic approach that addresses the levers of all the engagement levers and aligns people, your term, to fulfill the purpose and goals of an organization.
Where does that usually look? Is that an HR thing, Bruce?
Well, it should be, and I think it's the biggest opportunity for the HR field in a generation, but it doesn't right now. For the most part, HR people really fall into two buckets: compliance or the warm and fuzzies, and the real opportunity for HR when the profession wakes up to it, and I believe it will, is that they have to understand that HR is a business and that it's an investment with an ROI. And right now, when CFOs and CEOs think about HR, oh boy, what bright, shiny object are they bringing to me now? What do they want me to spend money on? And in fact, a study by IBM that came out just last week, I believe, a survey of the 3,000 CEOs found that the CHRO is dead last at 16% of the C-suite that the CEO is going to talk to about kind of initiative. So HR has a long way to go. It's really the CFO and the CEO right now. And at all companies that are run this way, Alan, Jacalyn, it's always because the CEO believes in it. The CEO of Southwest Airlines originally, Herb Kelleher, he's passed on now, but he was a firm believer in that. The Wegmans family, for the Wegmans grocery store chain, that's a company really committed to this. Hubert Joly of Best Buy, he's now retired, but he believed in it. So without the CEO support, it ain't going to happen.
So that's really fascinating, because for some period of time when I was in corporate America, HR was largely ignored in a lot of ways. And then they got this fancy title, Chief Human Relationships Officer, CHRO. And so what you're saying is that even though they have the title that would put them in that C-suite, the CEO is not actually looking to them for input?
Well, that's what the IBM study found in a survey of 3,000 CEOs, and that's kind of what my personal experience is. Now, they get input. They get input into, obviously, compliance issues, reporting issues to a degree, although some of the very earliest human capital reporting that's now required by the SEC appears to have been written largely by the legal teams, not by HR. So HR is sidelined because they're viewed as a cost center, not as a profit center. And the question to ask, when a CHRO has real power, when the company is sitting down and they're looking at their balance sheet and their cash and they're going, what are we going to invest money in this year? And the people at the table of where we're going to invest money are the people that have the real say. And I think in most cases, the CHRO is not there to decide, are we going to do a stock buyback? Are we going to do acquisitions? Or are we going to invest in our people, or how much of each? I think that really kind of tells the story that the CHRO is factually not really at the table.
It's not there at the table. No, that's
fascinating.
It's not the first time it's happened, Bruce. I've been in the technology business for years. That's really my background. There is another C-suite executive, the chief information officer, who already has gone through a transition where CEOs are more likely to take major IT projects and outsource them rather than use their own internal people to do them. And that loss of faith in some of your own internal staffing because you feel like they're not really delivering what you need delivered to make your company successful is common. And but it really does reinforce the point. If you're going to make a difference inside of a company, you got to start with the chief executive officer. If you start any lower, it's just not going to happen.
That's right. It becomes a bright, shiny object. Employees know it's going to go away. It's the initiative of the year. I think a great example is that about 10 years ago, when the employee engagement thing started, the buzzword started being used, companies started doing lots of employee engagement surveys and spent lots of money on them. And guess what happened to them? Nothing. They sat on a shelf. The information wasn't shared with other management. No real actions were taken. And voila, employee engagement has not gone up one iota in 10 years. According to Gallup, it hovers around 40%, 38%. But here's another even more scary statistic. Manager engagement isn't much better. I think Gallup tracks management engagement at about 51%. So my question I always ask if I meet a CEO or a CIO or a board member, or I should say a CFO, what if everybody in your organization was as passionate about it as you? Or what if every organization was 50% as passionate?
Good questions.
Those are great questions. We'll come back to them after the break, right, Dr. Jacalyn?
Yes, sir. We're going to take a break. So stay with us here on Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the business show with Al Cini and our guest, Bruce Bolger. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There are 7.7 billion people on Earth today. 40% of these people are under the age of 25. Young adults are the most fertile mission field in the world today. In Scripture, we see Jesus pouring his life into 12 young adults who he equipped to change the world and all of history. Like Jesus, we believe that the best approach to reach the world with the gospel is to invest in young, emerging leaders and equip them to build disciple-making movements. Concentric is the notion of surrounding and sharing a common center. Our center is the model and strategy of Jesus for both leadership development and ministry formation. As a global alliance, we provide equipping in biblical leadership based on Jesus' example in the New Testament. Jesus modeled for us how to make disciples that reproduce. Focusing on leadership development is key to creating movements that spread the gospel and Jesus' disciple-making strategy to young leaders around the globe. Our ministry alliance partners are actively equipping leaders and building movements of multiplication that reproduce the life of Christ. Join us today to equip young leaders with Jesus' strategy that will change cities and nations.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Academy Sedan and Limo is a full-service transportation company serving the Philadelphia metropolitan area with full knowledge of the New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. areas. We pride ourselves on being the most dependable, conscientious company in the industry. Our always on-time service and dependable pricing make us the company to call for any event or occasion. Our vehicles can accommodate any size party for any occasion. Our vehicles range from four-door sedans to SUVs to minivans to limo buses to full-size tour buses and can accommodate groups of 2 to 100. We offer airport shuttle service or over-the-road service without limitation regarding mileage or time, and no drive is too long or too far. So if you find yourself in need of transportation of any type with any vehicle, give us a call at 610-842-4564 and let us show you what a real transportation company can do for you.
Use code ACADEMY2020 to receive 20% off your first 3 rides, including parking and tolls.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn. My name is Al Cini, and it's always a pleasure, Dr. Jacalyn, to join you in these interviews.
Well, the pleasure is mine. We learned so much, and you brought us a great guest today. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, that Bruce has been someone I've heard so much about after years and years of being in the incentive and recognition industry. So thank you for being here, Bruce.
Well, it's my pleasure, Jacalyn.
All right. We started a great conversation in the first segment. We're going to continue it here. All right, Bruce, we've known each other for a while now. The real challenge of engagement is motivating people to do things. I mean, that really is the ultimate goal, getting people out of their silos, engaging them in the work the company does, bringing their whole selves to work and not just a part of their job that earns a paycheck. How do you do that? How do you accomplish that?
Well, there's actually a lot of science around that, but it's very simple, really. We have to look at people as a whole being, right? We're not just hamsters in a cage. We're complex beings. So generally, they have to have first a sense of purpose, that there's meaning. What am I doing? And whether you're a janitor or you're a top salesperson, what is your role in the organization? And task value is very much related to that. How is my job meaningful? And I heard a great story I think 60 Minutes did a story of a janitor in Texas who got a big award because over his 50 years at that high school, he had helped so many kids get off of drugs. He just turned out to be a coach. So, you have to have task value and you have to have purpose. Then you have to know, what are you supposed to do? What information do I need? And that's not just training. That's what is this, what's going on in this company? What are our problems? What are our challenges? What are our goals? Then you need to have training. You need to have you have to have effective training that teaches you the skills you need to fulfill the purpose of the organization and to do what you're going to contribute to that organization. And then a sense of support is critical. And a sense of fun. So this is where rewards and recognition come into play. Hey, you did a great job. A pat on the back after a while begins to, all right, I've had enough pats on the back. So a tangible, thoughtful gift or reward that's clearly understood is important. And then another important thing is collaboration and innovation. People thrive when they feel, and this gives them a sense of meaning and purpose, if they can innovate, so having a system for every employee can make suggestions and be rewarded if those suggestions are implemented, small to large. Diversity inclusion is highly motivational. Those of you who live in big cities, what do you enjoy most? It's the diversity. Diversity is fun. And you learn, as Dr. Jacalyn was talking before, about how, you learn from other people. So, and then you need measures, you need performance measures. How am I doing? So it's a strategic and systematic approach that touches all the levers of engagement with clear metrics. And then you can see how you're doing. And of course, assessment, I left that out. That's extremely important. So then you can see how you're doing against your metrics and make adjustments along the way.
Wow. How do you do that, Bruce? How do you do that at EEA? How do you help companies accomplish those goals?
Well, we publish 2 books, one for CEOs, which can be read in about an hour. CEOs are busy. We have a workbook, 230 pages or more for the expert. And we have some readers who have sent us pictures of their dog-eared copies that show all the different, because you have to be a jack of all trades. If you are engaging people, you have to understand a little bit about learning, communications, rewards, innovation, diversity, human capital analytics, engagement technology. In fact, Al, to answer your question, I think the biggest change that's going to happen in the next 3 years is the digitalization of the workplace. We've digitalized sales and marketing through CRM, customer relationship management, but we have not effectively digitalized the workforce experience. And this was happening even before COVID, but of course, for reasons that Dr. Jacalyn referred to before, it's being accelerated because of COVID. And so I think we're going to see an era of CRM for every employee. In other words, every employee will have an app on their phone, and that through their phone, they'll be able to get all the information on their company, the latest news, a quick video from the president with the quarterly report, tests, quizzes, surveys, coaching opportunities, social recognition, rewards and recognition, innovation, diversity and inclusion, all loyalty, all of these different types of functionality related to engagement can now be integrated into a smartphone device. And then that'll spit out all of the analytics that companies need to better run their business. And also they're going to need for human capital reports, because public companies now have to disclose how they treat people in the United States. Large companies have to do that in the European Union. And now more and more companies are publishing corporate responsibility reports, which explain how they treat people in order to engage their stakeholders. So we're moving from a nice to have to a need to have. And that's going to be the final push to turn people into a profit center from a cost center.
Wow. Well,
Bruce, I'm wondering, as the workplace shifts and where we work shifts, and of course we don't know how that's going to continue to evolve, but we know it's difficult to get the mind share of someone even when they're in an office situation where that's what they're supposed to be doing their job every, from 9 to 5, whatever the hours are. How can people drive engagement when people are working from wherever, right? People can be anywhere working right now. How do we get that engagement?
Well, it's funny. We all think about offices being, a better place to engage people. When my kids were watching The Office, when they were, living at home, I used to warn them that's all true. The Office is completely true. I'm not even kidding. I've seen every single thing on that television show in actual business practice. And you can see from my age, I've seen a few things. The way you start with purpose first and foremost, Jacalyn. When employees really have a sense of purpose and task value, and they know how they contribute, and they see how they can benefit from their success, you really want to have self-actualization. You don't want to. In fact, I don't even use the word motivate anymore, because motivate implies that I'm motivating you. No, we want to inspire you. We want to engage you. And we do that by creating a sense of purpose, task value, meaning, and then we equip you. We provide you with rewards. We make it fun. We create a community where people can share and get to know each other. The really sad thing, and I can't believe that our society accepts this, is that well over 50% of people go to bed Sunday night depressed or sad or anxious. And as a CEO, when I had organizations with a bunch of people working for me, the thought of having people depressed on the night before Monday was disturbing to me. And so what we tried to do was create a sense of community where they came to see their friends. They had a common mission. They knew how they could contribute. And you're never going to get 100% engagement from employees. But, when employee ownership can help as well. But even then, there's no such thing as 100%. But if we can get our employees 70% as engaged as our CEO is, we can really move the needle. And there's research to prove it.
It's, as you were talking, Bruce, I was thinking more than 50 years ago, we put 2 people on the moon, about as far away from headquarters as you can possibly put them. Communications were nowhere near as good then as they are today. Somehow, those people were so engaged in their work that without being micromanaged on a moment-by-moment basis, they were able to accomplish what they needed to accomplish, and the distance doesn't matter. Engagement is not a function of distance. Distance has nothing to do with engagement. People to have a positive, constructive relationship with somebody, they don't need to be in the room with you. They don't even need to be on the planet with you. A good relationship is what drives, in my mind anyway, engagement. And I know you feel the same way too.
Well, we know it factually. Look at business partners who start businesses together, and one might be in Manhattan, another one might be in Dallas or Des Moines or Omaha. Those partners, they have a sense of ownership. So they are really, really committed. They don't need to be motivated. So how do we create that sense of ownership in all of our people? And most CEOs don't realize the value of that. They can't measure it. And so they ignore it.
Well, that's key.
Really good discussion. It's time to take another break and hear from our sponsors. Stay with us here on Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, the business show on Business Talk Radio and social media. We'll be right back.
We'll be back.
Located at 121 Haddon Avenue in Westmont, New Jersey, is Margie Cedrone, artisan jeweler. Margie's been in business for more than 30 years. She works with her clients to create custom pieces of jewelry to reflect their personality and help them make their own bold statement. Starting in the renowned Jewelers Row in Center City, Philadelphia in 1988, Margie works directly with her clients to develop one-of-a-kind pieces such as necklaces, engagement rings, wedding bands, unique watches and tennis bracelets, as well as a myriad of rings and earrings for everyone in your family. She also has worked directly with Dr. Jacalyn over the years, creating unique pieces of jewelry to reflect her personality. She does pearl stringing and repairs on site at 121 Haddon Avenue. Call or text Margie at 215-384-7155. Margie Cedrone Jewelry is open by appointment only. Make your own bold statement.
Have you just lost your job or have been laid off and you are looking to transition to a new job or career? Maybe you have even tried submitting tons of applications and yet you keep getting turned down for jobs you qualify for. Don't wait until you become overwhelmed with rejections when you can easily transition or get your dream job. Let MJW Careers guide you to the right career path and a better, brighter future. At MJW Careers, we know what hiring managers are looking for, and our goal is to land you the job you deserve. What makes MJW Careers a wonderful provider over other services is our pragmatic and scientific approach to resume writing. There are rules, there are visual cues, there are content best practices. We understand those and work within the boundaries to ensure our clients' messaging appeals to the decision makers. Our career consultants will help you transition into new roles quickly and effectively. With our experience in virtually every industry, we will provide direction in the frustrating job market by helping you write a customized, professional resume and prepare you for your interview as well. Join the great number of people we have helped scale up to greater things in their careers. Let us help you on your career journey. Come visit us, www.jobstickers.com, to learn more and grab a free resume review or ebook.
I tried to ignore it, but my stomach issues were out of control. I couldn't fix them on my own. It was time to do something. A friend said the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation could help me find a specialist. Feels good to finally have a plan. Don't hide your symptoms. Get help at spillyourguts.org today.
Show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hi, welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live here on Business Talk Radio and social media. This is the business show. You don't want to be anywhere else, and we'd love to hear from you. You can put comments on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch TV. And you can pick up the phone and dial 609-961-1169. Over to you, Al.
Listen, Bruce, we can talk about this all day, and I wish we had all day to talk about it. I do want to make a point for people that are watching the program. First of all, your website is enterpriseengagement.org. Enterprise engagement, all one word, for people listening on the radio. I want to make sure that they hear that and they know they can go. Ton of information there. And you'll get to tell us more about your organization, too, toward the end of the program. But the second thing I want to point out is that enterprise engagement is more than just employees. It is the people in your supply chain, consultants, contractors, everybody who works with you on your purpose, whatever that purpose is that you feel your organization serves. So I have that right?
That's the big distinguishing factor of enterprise engagement. And frankly, that's the big challenge, because most organizations are not built for alignment. And I don't have to tell that to Al Cini. Organizations are terribly siloed. And historically, there's a reason capitalism is a direct evolution from feudalism. And people joke about it, but it's really quite true. If you study history, companies are like fiefdoms. They're little kingdoms, and they've got their CEO, and he or she is the king or queen. And then you've got the dukes, and you've got the barons, and you've got, in many cases, I hate to say it, you've got the serfs. And that's really where capitalism has evolved from. And it's a silly system because we're all on the same team. But how many of you have worked for a company where one of the things, if you're in management, that makes you depressed on Sunday night are the battles you're going to be fighting that week? Who's going to stab your back? Who's going to steal your idea? Who's going to thwart your effort to accomplish something? It's generally going to be one of your colleagues in the fiefdom. So alignment, Al, and this is, again, one of the reasons I was attracted to your business when I first saw it. It's the core. You cannot be efficient without alignment.
No. Dr. Jacalyn, you've worked in corporations?
Yes. I'm trying to think how to tee this up. So when you think about Sunday night dread and Monday, why is that usually? So in a sales organization, it's because you're going to have the Monday morning sales call, right? Where are you with your numbers? Let's look at the CRM. Let's show everybody, where you are. And you talked before, Bruce, about a sense of community and giving people the ability to be involved and have a sense of purpose. So how can organizations, CEOs on down, how can they change the way things have been, those Monday morning calls or the review of the Salesforce.com? What can they do to get their people more excited and pumped up so when they go to sleep on Sunday, they're like, yes, I can't wait for Monday?
Well, you know what? It's unfortunately the way most companies have done this in the past is they throw bright, shiny objects at things. Oh, let's try this. Maybe everybody would like to have a ping pong table in the lunchroom. Or, gee, let's try this new perquisite. Or we have this new employee engagement technology. No, it starts with a strategic and systematic commitment of the CEO. And if he or she has had an epiphany and realizes that they want to run their business that way, they have to start, in a sense, from scratch. Now, the good news is it doesn't cost money. It actually saves money, because most companies are wasting tons of money on stupid things that don't work. Incentive programs that reward the same 20% of people every time and that discourage the middle 60% because they know they'll never earn it. Or all the dumb safety programs that oftentimes promote underreporting rather than actually improving safety, or employee engagement assessment surveys that no one ever looks at. So really what the CEO really has to adopt in one way or another is a business operating system. And there are formal business operating systems out there that really organize the way a company is run, and that saves a tremendous amount of time and aggravation. But and that doesn't cost more money either, but it's a disciplined approach to running your business. But so even if you're not ready to have a business operating system, and by the way, they're quite prevalent in Japan because they are so effective. Even if you're not ready for that, you've got to have a systematic approach. You've got to really go down what is going to really inspire people. And it doesn't inspire people to say to your sales team, okay, you got to make 100 calls a week. All right, on Monday, what happened with your 100 calls? that's just going to lead to torturing your customers who are going to have their voicemails filled with desperate salespeople trying to hit their quota. So it really requires a holistic approach that really looks at the fundamental drivers of purpose and that moves from inspiring people rather than controlling them. That's the big opportunity.
A long time ago, actually in the 80s, I worked for two companies, both computer companies. One of the companies was a huge computer company, at the time the second largest computer company in the world. The other company was a kind of a small upstart, struggling to stay alive company with a lot of complicated history. Worked for both of these companies at the same time. My job, in fact, was to kind of broker a relationship between them. When I worked for the large computer company that was number two, 80% of the conversation was about what the next wave of layoffs is going to include. Who's going to be affected? Who's going to be included? Who was included in the last one? That's all they ever talked about. When I worked with the upstart company, all they ever talked about was how great the new products were, when the new products were coming out, how excited they were to be a part of that team. The little company was Apple. The big company was Digital Equipment Corporation. They don't even exist anymore. But for a while there, they were on the heels of IBM and catching up. And everything about those two stories was engagement. Everything, front to back. It was all about the engagement. That was what made the difference.
If CEO, go ahead, Dr. Jacalyn.
I was just going to say, I kind of feel like, and you were saying this, Bruce, it starts at the top. So if you have a CEO whose attitude is hands off, I'm in this office, don't bother coming in, I'm not going to walk the halls and get to know everyone, then that sets the tone that everybody in the organization isn't really as important. And Bruce, when you talked about incentive programs, for decades, there have been incentive programs that it was just to reward the same people who don't need the incentives, right? They're going to hit their goal anyway. So I think collectively, we have to look at everyone in the organization, give them a voice, give them the sense of community, and let them feel and know that their ideas are welcome, regardless of what department they're in.
Or what level, or whether I never want to hear in a company that an employee who's been there a week says, gee, I have an idea. Can I share it? The answer is yes. Doesn't matter. I don't care if you're a janitor. I don't care if you're a senior executive. Oh, that creates task value. And of course, you have to listen to their suggestion. And if it's a bad one, you have to explain why that's not going to work, or it might be a great idea, but the timing isn't right. So it's an obligation. You cannot fake engagement. We're used to faking things in business. Look at all the expressions out there. The military always comes up with expressions like FUBAR, right, in World War II. And I'm not going to say what the F stands for, but something upped up beyond all relief, right? Well, look at all the buzzwords we have in business, like vapor trail. That vapor trail, what is that? That's a name for executive who is always disappearing at the appropriate time or moving on right before he or she is discovered. So there are all these terms that really characterize the way that we manipulate our environment to, in many cases, and I've done it when I was a young employee. I had a sales job that I hated. I slacked off. Absolutely. And I did everything I could to let them know I wasn't slacking off, and I left that job after a year out of sheer boredom. So, the fact is, you cannot fake engaging people, and it starts with purpose, but then you've got to do things like fun is also very important, but everything has to be strategic, even fun. Because, living in New York, I mean, if you go into of course, everything's different now, but back in the good old days before COVID, if you walked into a department store in Bloomingdale's on 59th Street, those employees might be having fun, laughing and giggling about whatever, but they're not necessarily helping you as a customer. So workplace experience, there's all this talking, a new buzzword is, experience, workplace experience. And my question is, so what? So what? Some of the World War II, how good was the workplace experience for those soldiers of ours who defeated the Nazis? It was not a fun workplace, okay? And some people do really tough jobs in oil fields. But if they have a sense of meaning, they're properly compensated, they have a sense of purpose, guess what? And if they like their colleagues, and have camaraderie with them, a Sunday night is not necessarily torture.
Wow. I like that sense of purpose idea too. That's we can talk more about that and ROI and a couple of other topics we haven't gotten a chance to touch, but right after the break, I guess.
Yeah, we're going to take a break, so stay with us. We'll be right back here on Business Talk Radio and social media.
Thanks, Bruce.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Caruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Abella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book Abella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Abella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, live here on Business Talk Radio and social media. This is the Business Show. My co-host, Mr. Al Cini, and our guest, Mr. Bruce Bolger.
Bruce, it was, as a matter of fact, I just got a text from a friend of mine who was watching the program who said that he really wants us to talk a little bit about return on investment because that's what most CEOs are looking for. So when you've got a CEO who's saying things like, well, engagement, schmengagement, what good is it going to do me and what's the ROI on this? How do you answer that?
Well, you're probably driving with one eye on the road, and Ms. CEO, and it's not your fault because you didn't learn about it in school. Harvard Business School doesn't even teach it. But there's some very clear human capital metrics that companies don't even know about that can really help you to predict the profitability of your company going forward. And one of them is called human capital ROI, and it's a very simple calculation, a division of your human costs against your revenues and profitability. It's an arithmetic calculation you can do on your calculator. And then there's one called human capital value add, which actually shows how your human capital expenditures contribute to your bottom line. And if you see those numbers heading down, that's a pretty good bet that you're going to be falling short of your EBITDA or earnings projections. And then there are several other measures that are also highly predictive of EBITDA, and that's your revenues and costs per customer and employee, as well as the profit per employee and their willingness to recommend. And that applies to customers as well, because if you have a high profitability per employee, a lower, and a high willingness to recommend, okay, that's the magic that you want to be at. And then two other very other important, I should say, numbers are diversity, inclusion, and then that's not diversity. Diversity is what percentage of people work, at your company from different cultural or ethnicities or genders. Well, what diversity inclusion is how effectively are you integrating them in your community? How well are they contributing? And there's lots of ways to infer that. When you have employee engagement technology, you can get lots of data as to whether the different diverse groups are actually participating in all these activities. And then finally, training effectiveness. I mentioned that earlier. It's not how much training you do, but is that training actually driving your core purpose? Is that training giving employees or management the skills they need? So those are 5 key measures. And then the other thing that you can do, they're very common ROI measurement practices for almost any human activity. 2 people, Jack and Patty Phillips, are experts in this, and they've written a whole bunch of books on it, and their practices are pretty understandable and easy, because you can measure almost any type of human investment, incentive program, recognition program, against what the goal of that program was, what the level of engagement of that program was, and whether concrete results came out of that program against purpose, or financial results for that matter. In other words, what's it worth to you to lower turnover? What's it worth to you to increase presenteeism at your office? Put a dollar value on those things. If you want to increase sales or productivity, what's it worth to your organization? Most companies don't ask that question before they start spending money. Start with what's it worth to your organization to accomplish that goal.
That's great advice. And I know there's one other area I wanted to explore, and you brought it up in the last segment, and that is the Securities and Exchange Commission and governments all over the world now are beginning to require systematic approaches to engagement in corporations, aren't they?
Well, it's not quite that. And it's really important to be clear on this, because what they're requiring is disclosures. And the SEC, under a Republican administration, and one would not have necessarily expected that, because generally the Republicans are, deregulation. But Jay Clayton, who was the SEC under President Trump, was a huge believer in human capital, and he was the one that drove these first requirements for the disclosure of how companies treat people to the extent it's material to their success. And they have to report on this every year, and they have to compare how they've done one year to the next. But other than that, it's pretty general. The Biden administration is undoubtedly going to be harder on these disclosures. But stakeholder capitalism is not required of businesses, and I don't think it should be. If a company, as long as something is legal, be my guest. But what I like about disclosures is it lets people determine who you want to do business with. And according to a survey by an organization called Just Capital, who surveys 3,000 to 4,000 Americans per year, 70% of Americans now make buying decisions, investing decisions, or decisions about whether they want to work for a company based on how they treat people. Now, again, that's not always the case, but we are more and more driven by doing business with companies that treat people, which explains why the environmental, social, and governance stocks, ESG, it's better known as, are doing so well these days, is that people want to invest in companies that treat people well, and the environment for that matter.
Well, that's critical.
Absolutely. All really incredible points, and you're so well researched, Bruce. I love how you're able to bring up these surveys and quotes and research. How do people engage with your organization, and what does that process look like?
Well, thank you for asking. We're an outreach group. So the website that is on your on the footer there of the screen, that's our information service, and everything there is free. It's almost like a daily newspaper. You can subscribe to our e-newsletter or follow me on LinkedIn, and we post every day information, news, research, and that's why I know so many of these things, because literally every single day we're reporting on it, Dr. Jacalyn. So that's the website that's free, useful information. We then, our Enterprise Engagement Alliance has a formal learning and certification program, which we've just updated, designed to educate boards, CEOs, and management at all levels to be, in effect, chief engagement officers. What do you need to know? Because whether you're a manager of a Dairy Queen, whether you have a small department out in Scranton with a few office supplies salespeople in your staff, wherever, you need to understand how to engage them. And it's not just incentives, it's not just rewards, it's not just a pat on the back. It's this same strategic and systematic framework that applies to a corporation, applies to individuals. So the EEA has a training program, and it's a very reasonable membership annual program for people that are dedicated to engagement. And then we have an advisory service where we help both expert solution providers and corporations deal with these new human capital issues. What types of measures do we need to track? What do we do with that information? How do we report it? How do we measure the ROI of our engagement programs? And if I need a technology or if I need an engagement solution, we provide managed outsourcing to help them find the right solution for their organization.
I love that.
Those are the reasons why you want to go to that website, enterpriseengagement.org, critical. So great work.
And we can find you on LinkedIn. You said you're posting every day?
Every day. I don't post about me. Nobody cares about me. We post features like we might announce that stakeholder capitalism is going to be on a show like yours. Yes, we'll do that. But most of our research, most of what we post is information, statistics, surveys, research, interviews, useful information that people can actualize in their organizations today.
Bruce, what would you like to leave our audience with today?
Well, most of you have probably not yet heard the term stakeholder capitalism, but you've heard it here. And I believe that we are undergoing a revolution as big as Marx's, except that ours is a little better because it's based on free enterprise, it's based on liberty, it's based on freedom, and it's based on self-actualization. But it's going to be as big as Marxism because it's actually going to work. And so, unfortunately, the things that make news today in this country is chaos, anger, dispute, disagreement. Well, guess what? Stakeholder capitalism is boring because it just makes sense. It's just better business. And whether you're on the left or on the right or in the middle, it's just a better way to do business. So it's boring because, Jacalyn, the problem is it just makes sense. It's just better business. And there's no excuse not to do it.
Wow. Great way to close out the show, Bruce. Thank you so much.
It's a great solution for the I hate my job problem, which most people suffer from. And I mean, it's a great way forward for every company. Thanks for sharing away, Bruce.
Well, thank you.
Bruce, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and we'll look forward to having you back. If you'll wait for us backstage, we'll be right there.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Jacalyn and Al, for having me on the show.
Thank you. Well, my friend, another fabulous guest that you brought us today.
It was a great conversation. I've had plenty of conversations like this with Bruce. He is absolutely 100% committed to what he says. He practices what he preaches. And he comes at it by way of the incentives and rewards business. So working with people to motivate people, it's something that's kind of part of his DNA. He's very passionate about it. And it's easy to get infected with this kind of positivity. So everybody ought to get out there and feel better about everything just by doing well by doing good things.
Well, speaking of that, we really are excited about our platform, A Better You, lessons from the best coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors. We've got a show coming up at 4, Al. Can you share with our audience what A Better You platform is and why they should engage with it?
Sure. A Better You is a place for people who help other people improve themselves to come and make a difference in the world, a significant difference in the world. So A Better You really is about getting the stories out there of coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors, people who work with individuals, people who work with companies, people who work in specific areas of advice like financial services or healthcare. Everybody really has in common their passion for making others better versions of themselves. And A Better You really is a place to collect all their lessons and give people an opportunity to go and learn how to become a better version of themselves by learning from these experts.
Very well said. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure being on the program with you today and also having Bruce here. We hope you will join us at 4 p.m. Eastern Time for A Better You. And our presenter today is the fabulous Swami Tirtha.
That'll be a great program.
It's definitely going to be a great program. Any last words for our audience today, Al?
No, definitely. Just stay tuned to Dr. Jacalyn because you definitely want to meet. You want to meet the Swami. He's got a lot of great. He's funny, and he's great to talk to, and he's got a lot of great stories and a lot of wisdom to share. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that.
He's also known as the Orange Cowboy.
I know. I've seen him in his hat. Pretty
so
impressive.
Come back and see us at 4 o'clock. We'll see you again. It's a wrap for today.
Thanks, everybody.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.